Bitcoin is mostly trading sideways as spot ETFs accumulate 5x more Bitcoin per day than miners are producing. We are seeing the right thing fundamentally, that we are leading to another massive bull run. But sometimes that's reflected in the chart, sometimes it isn't. So today we're going to take a deeper look at the charts. We'll look at Bitcoin. We'll look at some of the broader money markets affecting how much money flows into technology and crypto. And then we'll look at some altcoin picks by all of you. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realized the potential for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for those discussions on becoming a solid and shakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, well, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto 7 years ago, and back then I was looking for a crypto channel and a group that understood crypto as an investment, that looked for good opportunities where the chances were massively stacked in your favor, rather than just being at the crypto casino and just pulling on every slot machine out there. Specifically looking for projects where the pros and cons of those projects balance, like the pros vastly outweigh the cons, etc. And that just comes through research. Now, I didn't find that, so we created it. And I say we because it's not just me. It's all family of rainmakers. And you can see some of them here in the chat. You will find them in our free Telegram group. The link to that is below, and you will definitely find them in our private Patreon that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. And that's where the very best discussion is. There are other benefits too, but you would have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many, many markets. None of this to be taken as financial advice. Well, without any further delay, let's bring Paul on the show. I know all of you love Paul as much as I do. Paul, thank you for joining us.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your comments. And yeah, it's always great to be here. Great to see your picks. Great to see what's going on in the markets. I've managed to work out how I can turn comments on as well, so I can see, we've got a few people already in the show. Chris missed the show last week. Hi, Chris. Mickey the G, Kelly, and Viv Puski, which I hope I'm saying that right. But anyway, great to see you all. And there's a lot to talk about in the markets, but I think we need to temper our expectations about what's going to happen in the short term versus what's going on in the long term. Biggest event that we've got coming up is obviously the halving. And because of that, I think there's going to be an interesting slow in, fast out approach. I'm beginning to subscribe to the fact that the market might not actually do much up until the halving. And then afterwards, or very soon, just as we approach it, then it starts to move. So it could kind of be counter to it moves before and then corrects afterwards and then goes up. But either way, there's a lot to be bullish about, especially in the bigger picture. So why don't I switch over to my main charting package, and then I can show you what's been going on. It's pretty clear that the equity markets, which are the main driver of liquidity and sentiment in the whole arena of the financial area, they're doing very well. So the Dow Jones, new highs. You remember all that FUD? Do you remember all the stuff that we were talking about last year and how this wasn't bearish and the market's just gone up in a straight line? It's getting to a point where it probably does need a correction. It does need to pull back and go sideways for a bit, which I think would be a good sign, but still going up. That's the Dow Jones Industrials, Dow Jones Transportation Index, that's going sideways, but looking to break up. NASDAQ, you may have heard, this is on a tear. It's absolutely flying, broken into new highs. And the reason why that's important for me is there's a lot of individual stocks that are doing extremely well in the space of technology. So you got Meta. Do you remember when Meta was down and out and busted? And look at it going up now, 80 points in a day. Why is that? Is that because of the metaverse? Is it because of the new technology that the market has seen but nobody's talking about? I think it could be. These are all really big gains that support crypto assets as far as I can see. Apple is consolidating near the highs. That's a really nice little triangular constriction, which should break higher. So there's still lots of reasons for technology to be bullish. Now, there was a fly in the ointment, which you might be wondering why crypto's gone sideways and corrected. First of all, if you're new coming in on the channel, you would have seen that we were talking about when the ETF was announced, that would be when the market would most likely correct because it had a big run up into it. And now it's happened. It kind of reversed the sentiment of all the short-term players who were saying, oh, this is really, really bullish and buying in at the wrong time. So the market's now going sideways. In between, in the US, we've had some really strong data coming out of the economy. And the biggest number that the market looks at is something called the non-farm payrolls number, which comes on the first Friday of every month. Now, the stronger that number, the more employment, like the more people who are being employed, occurs in the US. And when that number is very strong, in other words, when companies are employing more people rather than laying them off, it makes people who are looking at the interest rate markets worry that interest rates won't go down. In fact, they'll go up, and it pushes money back into the dollar because the dollar as a currency attracts more yield because the rate that you get on your bank accounts and effectively on bonds will go up. So that caused a bit of a jump in the dollar index, and we're seeing it sort of bounce a little higher, but it's not enough to change the overall direction. I still think that this is a bounce in a range bound market that will eventually go lower and allow for more risk on assets to be traded and for those to continue higher. The equity markets have ignored it. That's a really important point. They've just walked straight through it. So it's almost like if it's a weak number, rates down, stock market goes up. If it's a strong number, employment's good, it's good for companies, stock market goes up. A lot of this is the market reads it the way it wants to read it, no matter what the number is. So you have to kind of understand the underlying sentiment as to where we are, as to how it will most likely react. But the dollar rallying usually puts a bit of pressure on risk on assets, and the riskiest of risk on assets is Bitcoin and ETH, and then more and more risky as we go into the altcoins and beyond. And so those potentially could come under a bit of pressure depending, and we're going to look at a few today. But the main point is, yes, the dollar index has bounced. The numbers were strong, and let's not forget that there's also a lot of saber rattling and people talking about World War III as well, which is not a particularly good backdrop for wanting to take more and more risk in the markets. But the main point here again is that the equity markets are still rallying, and it seems like, as far as the market is concerned, it's business as usual. But when it comes to the the Bitcoin, and well, actually, before we get to Bitcoin, I just want to have a look at this. Is something I look at periodically, and it's important to keep an eye on. This is 2-year US yield. So they were at 5%, and they dropped down to this low here at 4.12%, and they bounced just a little bit. So that really strong non-farm payrolls numbers not really done a lot to change the direction of yields. So all the way over here was when the Fed was saying interest rates are never going to go up, and then they yanked them up. And of course, now from getting nothing on your bank account or it costing nothing to borrow, now it actually does cost quite a bit more to borrow. So that hit a peak around 5% when everyone was talking about inflation. If you may remember, we were saying that inflation would start to come down, and that would allow yields to come down, and that would allow more risk taking. And that's kind of what's happened. And I think we're probably going to hit perhaps a little bit lower, but overall, I'm not too worried about the direction of yields here. Yields can actually just stay stable. And as long as the equity markets are looking for an interest rate cut, which they still are, and I still think there's going to be one either in March or further out, we'll probably get a revision of those non-farm payroll data, or we'll get a really weak inflation number, and that will start to pump more money back in to the economy. And lo and behold, it will be in a year when we're going to have a presidential race. So, it's all going to start coming at the right time. But I think in the short term, we need to be, perhaps a little cautious, a bit picky about what we're looking at. But the backdrop is still positive. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting second half of this year.
Want to give a quick shout out to all the people here in the chat. Mickey the G asked us to look at ANKR. Chris says, "What's up, Paul and Jay? Man, I missed you guys last week. We missed you all too." Paul and I were talking right before we got started, and Paul was looking at the OMI charts, and there was a little breakout pattern, which OMI then did break to the upside. Vladimir, thank you for the kind words. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I looked at it and I thought immediately of you, and immediately of you saying, you know, I really love it when it gets this cheap, and me saying, yeah, I wouldn't buy it here. And then it suddenly turned around as if, and then it was like, wow, actually, this looks really interesting. But it was it was on a day when we weren't doing the show, so I was like, can't talk about it. But thankfully it's on the list today and we will talk about it. So yeah, I thought that was a particularly good shout by you to say it was going to turn around.
Well, I was hoping it would actually break to the downside. It did have a chance, and I was like, please get cheaper, please. But I did manage to pick up like 15 million more OMI while it was nice and cheap, and I was really excited about that. But would love to see it actually reverse course and go down some more, because I believe very much in the medium and long term of it. So if I believe in the medium and long term of it, then the short term, I want it to be as cheap as possible so I can accumulate more. I know Bill Gardner is there with me because he's been stacking it too. Want to give a shout out to Kelly joining us. Kelly, good to see you again. Vivi Puski, what's up, Rain? Hey, good to have you here. Looking forward to these every week. Thanks, guys. Any thoughts on CERE? We should have a chance to look at that. Devio did launch their token. It's not yet tracked on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko. They launched it just earlier today or yesterday, and it went up as high as like 57 cents, and it's been down to like 36 cents. Its actual initial exchange offering price was 40 cents, so it's going a little bit below the initial price. So Johnny's feeling disappointed by the launch. There's some good things for it being cheap. Devio, I think, has the best story in all of crypto. It can do 8 million transactions per second. They're using the funds that they're raising from launching these tokens to do something special that will put them ahead of all the other blockchain gaming companies. So they are a layer 1 blockchain that then has their own games that they're building on it, or games that they're building on it can handle more transactions than anything out there. As you can see, Solana is struggling. In fact, Solana just collapsed handling the transaction loads that it has. And yet Devio can do 8 million transactions per second and has been running for like 6 years now. And so it was built and developed mostly in stealth. They didn't do a lot of news or press yet. They've done just a little bit recently, and I do think it's one of the greatest stories in crypto. So medium term and long term, I don't see why Devio doesn't do amazing. So in the short term, like, there's some good sides to it not going 10x or 20x from the launch, in that those that want to accumulate, well, then the price is not a bad price at all. In fact, I think they're only tradable on Gate.io and Uniswap right now. So not a lot of options. I hope some more exchanges get added because, well, if you're in the US, I guess you can use Uniswap, but it's never preferable to use Uniswap. So good to bring that up. I want to go to Bill Gardner in his super chat. Thank you for that. Good thing I picked up 8.5 million a few days ago while it was down. That is awesome, Bill. Good job, brother. Yeah, in the medium term, when that goes absolutely crazy, geez, that's going to be like, you're going to do really well with that. All right. Yeah. Let's take a look. What are you thinking about the Bitcoin charts? What's funny is part of the reason crypto is depressed, even though technology stocks have been taking off, is because people are thinking, oh my gosh, the Bitcoin spot ETFs aren't doing that well because there's a lot of selling coming from the grayscale one. But they're not looking deeper below the surface to see the iceberg that's below the surface, in that every day 5 times more Bitcoin is being bought than the miners are even producing. Now, bought specifically by these ETFs. And so there's other buyers that are buying it too. And so this is going to lead to a massive supply crunch, and that's going to cause the prices to pump. So it's funny to me, you can see this iceberg coming for the ship, and yet a lot of people just don't they're just caught up in the day-to-day and the negative news stories and don't see that, wow, this is going to be amazing. It's going to lead to an explosion in price.
Yeah. So was that over to me? Or
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
let's take a
Sure.
look at what you're seeing on the Bitcoin chart.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I just wanted to make a very quick point. I think we're getting near to the Chinese. Is it the Chinese New Year, which is happening on either Saturday or Sunday? And there's been a lot of deflation talk in China. And look at this is the stock market, completely opposite really to the US, and it's been going down. But there've been some signs technically that this is trying to base out. This is called a spike, and this is a really sharp upward move. I've got a feeling that we could be, and it's just a sense because of course this is still a pretty vicious downward trend, that this may be reversing. It could be the beginning of the end. That is a really positive thing for the global economy. If they start to pump money into China, like reduce interest rates and just generally support the economy, then that is going to help everybody. And there will be more money sloshing around globally. So I think this is, whilst it might not look like much, I think this could be the next phase of the bull market. We could certainly support it, and it does stick out on the global stage as being um, European stocks are moving up, US stocks are moving up, most stock markets are moving higher. This is definitely going in the wrong direction. That's not usually, in my book, a reason to buy something, but I do think that this could be an interesting area to watch for a reversal. So onto the Bitcoin chart. As you can see, obviously very volatile. We've had a sharp move up, which was all the move that came in before the ETF was announced. And that's why the expectation was that it was going to perhaps correct. But we also got the measure of how far it wanted to correct to. Now, I can't remember what level I gave, but this support level of 38 is a pretty good one. I think I was looking around 36, but it's in this consolidation I was expecting for it to support it. Now, it has bounced back up, and this is quite a nice little continuation pattern that would work if it was in a smoother trend, if it was happening without all of this next to it. So what I feel here is there's a lot of thinking about sentiment. I think there's a lot of wood to chop from the late players into the game. So the people who were buying it on that announcement or just before here, if they were still holding it, they might just want to bail out or will be bailing out, which is probably going to lead to a range. And I think a range is fair. But I also don't think that we should take our eyes off the fact that this is a bull market and it's been going up from here. This is the main upward trend. And then it's accelerated from here to here. And then it's accelerated. Now, again, we can draw in this. Well, this line can be drawn in, and then we can draw in this line from this particular low. So the trend is still up, even though it probably does need to consolidate a bit because its main angle of trend is actually quite a lot lower. But for the moment, I don't think it will give people too much of a chance to, to people who really missed it. And I think there's more people who've missed it than not to buy. So, in other words, a range and then it starts to take off again seems to be the most likely strategy. So, as far as kind of waves go, I use Elliott wave sparingly, really, because it's something that can get very complex. But if this is a main thrust, a main upward wave, this area here is a corrective wave. It doesn't look like a top; it looks like a correction. So we just need to see how much it's going to correct to. Now that bounce off 38 was pretty sharp. I mean, it didn't want to stay down there too long, did it? When it hit it like a hand on a hot plate and boom, it's straight back up again. So that for me is a very good sign that it's probably going to go sideways again and then gently start to rise as we approach, I guess, the halving, and then maybe accelerate after that. So for the moment, there's not much I can say technically, other than we're at a bit of a holding pattern, which is kind of the theme of what I was saying in the first part of the show. But I do think overall it's anyone who's expecting it to be back down at 28 or even 30 will probably get fairly disappointed, because I don't think it will necessarily come back that far, because there's things like the dollar weakening, interest rate cuts coming, and things like that should underpin it and probably make any correction a bit more shallow than would normally be. So for the moment, I think it's just a sit tight and let's just see how this trades, and we'll look for some bullish signals. But we may have seen the extent of the correction here. That's quite possible. So again, just focusing on this being an upward trend.
Yeah, we saw with the gold ETF launch that after there was a run up in gold leading up to the ETF launches, and then when the gold ETF launch, and when it did launch, it then traded downwards and sideways for like 10 months. And then over the coming years, the price of gold tripled, which is incredible. And so the way it's playing out isn't very much of a surprise. And so I always thought it would be mid to late this year when the real action really starts happening. And so what we're seeing is just that. And I've been thinking this last month, how it's hard to be patient. We, as human beings, we like lots of action going on. We like the dopamine rush of tons of things happening. And successful crypto investing has to do a lot with waiting. And because of my real estate background, waiting in that took decades. Sometimes you were waiting for a decade. So it doesn't seem like that long comparatively in crypto, but it still seems long. And it can be hard just to be patient and wait. All right. Brian, thank you. Nice tan rain. Yeah, I had some great time in Mexico. For any of you want to see more, follow me on Instagram. There is a link below. I'll show you guys a little bit of some pictures from the trip. Hold on, give me just a second. And here's some of the pictures from the trip. I had some fun. Some of these were shot before, but had some nice. It doesn't pop up right when I do that. Let me see. Anyway, yeah, some fun pictures. Went down to Tulum, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Isla de las Mujeres for a week, and spending some of those crypto gains, but just a little bit. Most of what I have, I still have very much invested in letting it grow. But really over 2 cycles that you're prepared for in crypto, you should have life-changing gains if you're doing things right. And I look forward to many of you, this will be your first cycle that you're well prepared for. And I really look forward to seeing what you hit and how you do, because I know many of you have been making very smart decisions. Wes asks, is Bump still on track? I did star that so we can look at Bump after we look at some of the other ones. Do you mind if we jump over to Solana, Paul, and take a look at what Solana's doing?
Yeah, sure. So whilst you're talking about gold, I popped a quick chart up on gold just to show that it is consolidating. Actually, that looks like it's going to break higher, which is an implication that the dollar's going to break lower, and kind of underpins this whole risk on strategy. And I got my first advert that's started to say sell your gold. So that's usually a sign that the retail market's picking up on the fact that gold has gone up. But anyway, with regard to Solana, yeah, I mean, this doesn't look bearish to me. I know what you were saying at the top about perhaps the number of transactions was less and it went down, but there's not really much evidence that this is just a consolidation, and it should just go sideways for a bit before continuing higher. And in fact, it's kind of mirroring what we've got over here. So we've got this reversal, consolidation, which mirrors this, and then it should break upwards. So I think Solana is still going to be one of the main. You guys look at the technology behind it. I'm looking at how many times people mention this particular coin and how the technicals are as to whether sentiment has changed. I don't think the sentiment has changed, and this trend is still up. So other than a much needed correction from a really sharp move and a consolidation, this is still on track for me for being bullish. if I bought it now, I'd fully expect for it to go sideways. So I'm not saying this is the price and it's going to move right now, but I do think a bit of sideways price action, consolidation, etc., would then take it up to a break of its high of 126, 143 being the next biggest level coming from here, and then we can start eyeing up the all-time highs. But that's probably for 2025, mid 25 into 26.
Yeah, it does look like it wants to run higher. I'm not taking this trade. There was a nice breakout. Let me share screen here. There was this nice breakout here where it was trading sideways, broke to the upside, and it looks like it's just consolidating some more. Now, Solana did go down again. Last time it went down, it was actually right here, and then it totally crashed. But it also coincided with being late in the bull run too, so it never recovered from this and absolutely crashed. And this happens in the bear market anyway, so I think there's a lot of people are really getting bullish on Solana. I do think the crash is a big deal, but hopefully they can resolve it. Solana has been buggy that way. Cardano took the time to build it right. Cardano's had way less issues like this than Solana. Solana was kind of like build fast and let it break, and then we'll fix it. And so we'll see over time which model wins in the long run, Solana or Cardano. Solana has more people building on it, which is very bullish for Solana's future. Cardano is breaking way less, which is bullish for Cardano's future. So let's take a look over at Cardano's chart, which is another one for us to look at today.
Yeah, so Cardano in a corrective phase. I know you like it more. It's actually got a really nice pattern here, which it doesn't look like it from the side, but this is developing into what I like to see in terms of symmetry. So consolidation. This is a reverse. Let me get it on a log scale. There we go. That should look a bit better. So what we see is effectively a left shoulder ahead, and then this is dipping into a right shoulder. So this level, which is at the 200-week moving average, this purple line, is absolutely key, 0.67 cents. Now, that should draw the market like a magnet. After it's dipped, good support around 0.45, so 45 cents is not a bad place for me to pick some up, and then look for an acceleration, maybe to add some more as it hits this 68, 69 level. But then really, once it breaks that, that's when it should start moving. The consolidation could last a while, so I'm not saying that this is going to be quick, but the chart is still bullish. It's still a bullish chart from the low. It's turning around. It's had a really sharp, if you count the number of weeks that it went up, that was multiple weeks that it was just going straight up, and it's consolidating and reversing. It's not an aggressive down, down, down. There's some up weeks as well within that, so to show that it's more a consolidation rather than a complete change in trend. But for the moment, it's still a big one, and it should go higher with everything else. So it could probably get blown around by the outlook for Bitcoin, most likely, and if that's going sideways, this could do the same, I suppose. But yeah, it's not really run as aggressively as some of the others, so it does have this latent potential that I always think is worth keeping an eye on, or having some in, just in case it does start to run. But the chart looks good, so break a 6.68 to 69 is the main signal, but there's some things to trade around it in between. So yeah, I still like it.
Yeah, I do like where Cardano's at better than Solana. Now, I'm not buying either of them just because their prices, they're such high market caps already, solidly in the blue chip category. So Solana's market cap is at 42 billion, and Cardano is like 30% of that price at 17 billion. So Solana's market cap is 2.5x where Cardano's is. And so Solana, there was a really good deal when it hit $6. It was an incredible deal. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is amazing. all the way down here, and it doesn't quite show it, but it did wick down to $6 here, which was an amazing price. At $97, just keep in mind it's already gone up 15x. That doesn't mean it can't run more, but buying it now, in my opinion, is buying it high, hoping it goes higher. Now, I do think it's actually is going to go higher into the bull run. It's just the multiples aren't there as much. Cardano is about 2x from its bottom. So it bottomed at like $21, and I was ecstatic, or 21 cents. I was ecstatic when it hit that price. Now, it's not fully reflecting it here, but it hit 21 cents, and it was an amazing price. So it's a little over 2x from its bottom. I think Cardano has a long ways to go. It's been out of the narrative, kind of feels boring, and a lot of people miss opportunities to buy when the charts feel boring like this. But you see this nice consolidation, this nice rounded bottom, and it's probably going to do well. For those that are looking for blue chips, maybe this is one you want to take a look at. I'm not holding a lot of blue chips. I still hold a little bit of Cardano just from before, but I haven't been buying more of it. I've been buying more of the riskier stuff that I frequently talk about. So let's jump over to CFX and take a look at what's going on there.
Sure. So that's Conflux Network, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting chart technically for a few reasons. One being is we have had the breakout, the main thrust, which came early before it basically came before or in line with the kind of big picture, macro picture, corrected, and then is now on its second leg higher, which I like. It seems to trade really nicely on this trend line. The amount of times it's touched it, it's 1, 2, 3. That's really good. And it's creating a kind of cup here in the way that it's gone down. It's now starting to accelerate back towards its previous high. So as far as the technicals goes, it looks interesting. And it's halfway between this key resistance and this key support. So it's likely that it will chew this level for a bit, because 50% retracements tend to be very important. In fact, by eye, that could be a 50% or so retracement from the low to here. But the main point is, where will it go next? And given that the trend has been up from here, which is October last year, actually the low in the stock market, I see no reason why I would turn bearish on something like this. At the very least, for it to turn bearish for me, I'd have to break this trend line. But even that, I think I would allow, and probably put a stop around 14 cents or so, really 10 cents being the absolute break for me, because that is, as you can see, key support here, and it's been a major level in the past. So I think it's going to get drawn up towards this prior resistance. It may not be a straight line move, given what we were saying about the macro picture being a consolidation, but as long as it slowly works its way up, I think that's good enough. So on its own, not taking into account anything being better than it, and outperforming and being a better buy, if I was just looking at this market as to whether it's a buy or not, for me, it would be a buy. And I can't remember. I seem to have some vague recollection that we might have talked about it, but obviously there's been quite a few, so I'm not sure if this is a debut or whether we have talked about it.
I think this is the first time we've covered it, but maybe somebody had suggested it during one of the videos. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I want to show a little bit of history on the charts. And so this one launched back in 2020, and with the 2021 bull run that happened earlier 2021, it peaked out at about $1.50, about $1.60. Then it absolutely got punished by the bear market. Now, a lot of what happens when these projects launch is they're still developing, right? And so their mainnet isn't live or anything. So there's some excitement because everything's going up. And then they absolutely get punished. And they went all the way down to 2 cents. So probably my guess is their mainnet launched in here, because I think this is like a layer 1 or a layer 2 blockchain. And so it went from, I don't know if it'll survive, to some bullish things happening and picked up the price. Literally went from 2 cents to 45 cents. So really big increases there. And then it's been consolidating some, and it does look bullish that it wants to run some more. The overall market cap still under $1 billion. So this one's got a good chance. You can see a lot of their tokens are already in circulation. I like to see that. So there are lots of good things about it. In order to find out more about Conflux, you can link to their website right from CoinMarketCap and do more research. Website, I like to look at Twitter, what's said about them. I then like to watch YouTube videos and see if there's any YouTube videos with the founders, because I want to hear the founders' vision for it and what's going on there. All right, so good suggestion by one of our viewers. Let's take a look next at OMI.
Okay.
As far as whether I would buy this one, a small amount. It's hitting a market cap range that's a little bit above where I like to be, but a small amount just because I like what the chart is doing. But I wouldn't go heavy on this. It's not cheap enough.
Okay, so over to OMI, which, as we were talking about at the top of the show, the breakdown, something that breaks an important support like this support area here, is not something that I ever would buy, because it's almost like a signal in reverse of breaking into a new high, which for me indicates the market is saying there's strength and it's going to go higher. So the opposite is true if it breaks an important support. But by the same token, if the market then rejects that signal, that's just as important as well. So when people look at technicals, they say, well, okay, you might have said it was going to go down. And yes, that would always be my expectation when the probability is looking like that, when the market breaks a low, because most of the time the market will do it. Now, it doesn't mean 100% of the time that is going to happen, because if it did, it would be very easy to make money. The market changes direction, doesn't it? And this is a classic example of, if one had sold on a break, the market told you very quickly that it wanted it to reverse. So volume going up is a good indication on the green side. So on the positive side, the market was turning around, and it seems to have woken up a bit. So we had this as a major reversal, which failed around here. So it was looking like an inverse head and shoulders, which then failed when it broke down here. The fact that this could all still be a basing pattern is a possibility. And it only becomes that possibility when the market starts to trade closer into filling this gap. And the first step has been made. It's actually had a really nice run from the low. It's created a small double bottom pattern. There's actually a small inverse head and shoulders pattern, which was the pattern I was looking at last week and thinking, that's really interesting. That's probably just going to squeeze up. Whether it's a long-term or short-term move, and in my head, I had, Rain's voice saying, I really want to buy some more because it's gone down. And I thought, well, actually, that would be a good place, risk reward. And it has moved. So there's a double bottom at this exact level, which, if you look at where it stopped where it found support on the way down. So this is a key resistance point, exactly where it is. 3077 is where it's at. So that's why it stopped here. Now, how it trades from here is going to be interesting. What I would expect is it goes sideways from a bit, stays close to this top, and then squeezes up again. And then that again becomes interesting, because we will then be targeting this big breakout point, which is what I would refer to as a strategic long-term buy, moving away from kind of short-term trading, as it were. So once that's completed, then we start looking at, obviously the chart's new now, so it doesn't have a lot of data because it was relisted. But this whole area here becomes very interesting as a base, and we could start talking about some more interesting levels on the upside. So it's doing the right thing. It's finally kind of woken up. People have looked at it and said, wow, this is cheap. That's the first phase of it. I want to see some more of it, but just watch out for this, 77 level, because it is key. But I don't think, if this is a good move, it won't make too much work of it. It will just go sideways for a bit and squeeze higher. So from being very cautious, I'm actually feeling quite a lot more optimistic about this now. And I would put it in the highly speculative buy point here. And then I'd feel much more comfortable when it starts trading towards this area here. And I just bet Bill will as well. And so will Rain. Well, actually, Rain won't, because he'll say he wants it cheaper. But for me, technically, I'd like to see it in this area here.
Yeah, I know. I'll be like, dang, it's so expensive now.
Yeah, stop buying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really loving that right at that support level, picking it up. I was able to get some at like 0.00057, and I was as happy as a kid on his birthday. It was amazing. Yeah, and I had a bunch of cash free that I moved over and just bought a whole bunch, and I was like, yes, oh, love it. Because sometimes those lows are hit, and I just don't have any available cash, and I don't sell things that are down to buy other things that are down. So, yeah, this one worked out really well. For me, I'm really excited about what's going on with the COMI long term. And I know people get depressed, like, oh my gosh, it's not doing anything. The price is so boring. It's so low. And oh, the team isn't doing this and hasn't done this and hasn't done this. But essentially, digital collectibles narrative hasn't hit since January 2022. So 2 years ago, what we're waiting for more than anything is for the digital collectibles narrative to hit public consciousness. And the COMI doesn't have to do anything apart from what they've done, and it will go absolutely crazy. So if they continue to do good things on top of it, well, then it will go even crazier. And a lot of people disagree with me on this. I don't know. I don't know everything. I've been in crypto for 7 years, so far longer than most of the people that I've been arguing with by a ton. And then prior to that, I studied investment cycles for 20 years, mostly in real estate and some stock investments. Doesn't mean I'm always right. It doesn't mean I know everything. It's just I just play the probabilities. And in my opinion, the probabilities are really good that at some point in the next 6 months to 12 months, we'll look back and this price will be seen as extremely cheap and people will wish they could buy at this price. And so we have lots of people say, oh, a company will never hit certain price again. But if you look into the history of those people, they have no prior investment experience and they've been in crypto for like 18 months. They're just new and they're just making wild guesses because they don't know what they're talking about yet. They're just new. And whenever you're new at something, you're always bad before you're good. Now, some people get good because they work on themselves and really study and like start detecting patterns and stuff. And sometimes people just stay bad because they just don't learn anything, even though they've been around in the space. So we'll see how this plays out and who's right on that. But I love this price down on this lower trend line and with stock up massively. For me, it's still a buy. For me, anything under 0.001, so this line here is cheap. And is it as cheap as it was? No, it was so nice and juicy. Is it still cheap enough to buy? Yes, it's still a massive buy in my opinion. So that's the pre-planned ones we have. Let's jump over and take a look at ANKR, which was suggested by Mickey the G.
Yeah, ANKR. Again, I've got a feeling we had a look at this one.
We did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, not too long ago. Same story, really. It's in the middle of this range. Overall, I like the fact that it's on a higher platform compared to its low here. So we got this rally, corrective phase. It's held above its it's not trading all the way down here trying to reverse. It's actually halfway on the correction from this correction and going sideways. Also, it looks like the volatility seems to be reducing. So if you look at the distance between this high and this high and this high and this high, it's getting less, which can often indicate that the market is readying for a breakout. One would hope that that breakout will be to the upside given the macro situation. So for me, it's still in a holding pattern. For choice, I would say 60-40 to the upside, just because I think that's the dominant direction. And I would prefer it to break one of these key resistance points to indicate that it's really on the move. 0.5 cents is where it's at. That is a massively important pivotal level. That was the trigger for the downside, and it's capped it on the upside. So that's really what it needs to take out for this to fly. But it can give some signals beforehand, and it's not looking too bad down here. It's just because it's going sideways, it looks like it's going to do a lot more of that before it starts to turn. So yeah, so for the moment, still keep asking about it, because it's important we look at this and look for a change in its momentum. But at the moment, it seems to be stuck in this range until it breaks out. So I would say it's a buy still. I wouldn't say it's a sell for me. I've got no reason to be bearish at this point. I'd only start to worry if it took out one of these lows, particularly this massive support point at 1.4 cents. That's where I would be really personally worried about it. And there's a bit of a buffer between that and where it is now. So for now, I think just a range until it starts to accelerate back to the upside.
Yeah, I see the chart on this looks pretty good. Overall, the DeFi narrative hasn't hit. And so for you, this was a buy, right, Paul?
Yeah, I'd put it in the buy category, but I don't, it's more long term, because I don't think it's going to move perhaps much in the very short term.
Yeah, completely agreed. And really, this one's just waiting for the DeFi narrative to really take off again. You saw it really pump last time DeFi really hit, which was early 2021 with the major move in the bull run. There was a metaverse run later in the year, and this did really good, as actually Luna did really good and then crashed when Luna crashed. So it's retraced from its highs, went down 90%, and it did survive. It's got a market cap of 241 million. So it's got some room to run. I'm not buying a lot of this just because I don't have a good idea what it could possibly go to. Like, it seems to me it could 10x from here, maybe if it's lucky 20x. And so it's not, and maybe there's something I'm missing about it, but it doesn't have good enough multiples for me to be buying it. So for me, it's just a wait. Let's jump over to, let's see what else we got.
There was bump, wasn't it?
CERE from Brian Walsh to look at.
Oh yeah. Right. So that's CERE network, I assume. Is that up to date? Looks like it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if this is the one, this is interesting. Very interesting. We've got a base here. So downward trend, rally that failed. So it was quite a nice base here. It did move on it, but then it came back into it, an indication that the move has failed, and then took out the low, which what I was talking about before as to why I worry about low breaks, because they can lead to this sort of price action. But the market went down and then created a really nice floor. So that took a long time, from the 15th of June all the way to the 22nd of November. It was trading in a very tight range, which is quite unusual, really, because reversals tend to be a bit more volatile than that. But the important thing is it then broke out, and that was the sign at 0.3 of a cent that the market had changed, or the dynamics had changed, and it was now moving in the positive direction. It was moving upwards. So it's had a decent rally since there, and obviously come off again. So the question is, where do we go now? Now, I think overall it is trying to reverse. It's showing us that there is a lot of resistance at this 7.7 of a cent area. So I think be careful around here until it breaks, and then we've got resistance that comes a bit higher than that, up at 1 cent. So but overall it's made its base. That for me is where it kind of set up the groundwork for its rally. And whilst it's above this level here, 0.0037, I would stay on the bull side. Now, it could come back a bit lower because it is correcting, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. So it's not like I'm saying if I buy it here, I'm expecting it immediately to go up, because it's in this correction. But despite that, it has done the work to create a base that I think has got a fairly good probability of it turning around again. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. That is absolutely for sure. And so for me, it would be a buy. I might like to wait a little bit to see if it goes lower to getting a bit closer to this support point. But you know, to be quite honest with you, if I'm going to buy something, the difference between this and just a bit lower isn't a whole lot. So the problem with trying to be clever like that is the market then goes up and then you start having to chase it. So um, the two places I would buy is either now or through this resistance. That for me is just an automatic trigger because it's taken out a key resistance point. This is buying it on a corrective phase where it's kind of landing into some support, having done its first run. So it has a slightly different feel to it because we need to dig in and see where it's going to get a foothold before it starts the next move. But either way, as long as it's above this support point, I think it looks good. So for me, I'd consider it a buy, but I'd just step into it cautiously.
Yeah, this chart looks interesting. I like what I'm seeing on a few things. So it launched late, like the token started trading really as the bull market was ending, the second part of the 2021 bull market. And so it's price corrected all the way down. So the price corrected like 99% down, which is frequent on new projects that launch during the bull market. They absolutely get punished during the bear market. And it's only gone up a little bit off its lows, but it's showing that it wants to run, as well as a lot of the tokens are already vested. So 69% of the tokens are in circulation. Gives it a market cap of 33 million. So that's in a range that can be very interesting for me if it's got really big upside. Now, a few things. Their website's okay, but I can't say I fully understand what they do. Introducing CERE roadmap, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name right. Discover some amazing things you can do with the DDN and tool suites. So I can't say I fully understand what they do. If I were really to get serious about this, and it is actually interesting to me, I would be checking out their Twitter. I would then be looking for interviews with their team and let their team explain to me what is that they do. So it does say somewhere I felt like there's a little bit better explanation. Decentralized data clusters for the AI era. Okay, so that's a narrative that can be interesting. So good suggestion. Interesting. I would say it's possibly a buy at where prices are at right now. So I would like to know more before I actually bought. I would watch interviews with the founders. Those are my favorite because it gives me a good idea of who's running it, who's behind it, and what I'm looking to expect from them. All right, let's jump over to let's take a look at Bumper first.
Yeah. This could be quite a quick one really on Bumper because it's still coming back to this trend line, which I think we mentioned the last time we looked at it. The history of this was obviously this big downward trend. Then it started to form a reversal. Looked like it was trying to break out here at 10 cents. It failed against that really key resistance and has had this big sink to this trend line. Then gave a bounce. Now it's coming back again against this trend line. So this is an important point here. It should really bounce here and start to head back up to 6.5 cents to break that, to get through this resistance. And I think the market environment really does support its business model. So quite why it's not responding, I'm not sure. But I think it does take some people longer to pick up on these potential projects. So we shall see. But that's a really nice trend line. That's all I can say from a technical point of view, because it should bounce against the trend line. That's what we use it for. And as far as parachute levels, which is again why I look at charts for areas where I think, okay, things are going wrong. I've got to change my strategy or get back to shore and rethink my position. That would be through 2.7 cents or where this prior support has been. Anything below there, and it's starting to feel like it wants to get down to these lows, which I don't think that at this stage. I'm just saying I'm looking one step ahead as to what I might do, because if it does get there, it feels difficult to actually, for me, exit a position. So so I have to have that strategy already set. So for me, it should be a buy against here, but it would be a small buy because I'd like to see, in preference, a reaction against that support level, and then it moving up to then go with that, rather than just trying to buy it. You could just try and buy it on a trend line. That's perfectly valid, but I prefer to be a bit more cautious with this, just because it hasn't been running recently. It is more of a consolidation, a big consolidation, and it needs to sort of prove itself a bit more in this environment compared to some of the other ones that have been trending more smoothly. So a cautious buy, I would say, on a rebound against that trend line.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, if you're in our private Discord at the gold level, you'll see that I bought a bunch more bumper recently. So, little heads up, for me, it was definitely a buy. I was looking for a good chart. I wasn't able to pull up the same chart that you were able to pull up, because what I wanted to show is that lower trend line that you were showing, and that lower trend line is awesome. Now, some people will say, well, what if it breaks through that lower trend line? Well, I would be happy if it broke through, because I really believe in this one for the medium and the long term. In the short term, then I hope prices go cheaper, not more expensive. So I load up on a bunch more bumper at these prices. Great comment by one of the viewers I wanted to share. It was funny because she probably is right here. So Forbes X2 says, don't expect bump to do much until it 100Xs in 1 month. It may play out that way, because this one, I think what they're doing is foundationally changing. Like it's an earthquake in what it allows to be done. It's just nobody's paying attention to that narrative right now. But when they do, something like bumper could then get a lot of traction with all, like, as the price starts to take off, then they get coverage from all the major YouTube channels, and then it goes absolutely crazy. And so green candles sometimes bring bigger green candles. And so it may play out just like that. Right now, bumper's off most people's radars, even though I think it does something that's fundamental to the future of decentralized finance. So I've been picking up more while it's cheap.
Chris Ashby's made a comment here, which I think you might find interesting. No, it's the one on bump, the second from last one. They temporarily removed the bump token use case.
That's why it's lagging. Yeah, so they temporarily made it so you don't have to use bumper in order to, because you have to stake bumper with things, like as you provide some liquidity or you're taking a position. They remove that just to let people get used to using it without having to buy bumps token, and I'm okay with that. Boy, this cold is killing me. Money May all day says, hey Jay, great content to watch live or on repeat. You ever been to Bonnie, Scotland? No, but one of my good friends spent some time in Scotland. He, Doctor of Stuff, actually worked with the Scottish Parliament for a summer internship. And I love the Scottish accent. I actually play around with the Scottish accent, but I won't do it here because it might, especially while I'm sick, totally flop. All right.
Yeah. Edinburgh's extremely beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. Some very beautiful places in Scotland, for sure.
Jamar,
Right.
SCLP.
Okay. SCLP. Scallop. Oh, very nice. Interesting. Yeah. Immediate view here is it's a buy. Hopefully this is the correct chart. So this is a buy for me. The market is in a range. So yeah, interesting that it's consolidating. 0.34 is where I want to see it go to. But this little area here is a triangular constriction. It's just starting to break out. So if you look at the lows, they're going higher and higher. So each step is slightly higher and it's pushing against resistance. So I like that. Okay, you could have bought it cheaper, but for me, that's not the point. For me, I want to get on a smooth trend and try and stick with it. I think you've got your pictures coming up there, rather than the actual chart. So there we go. That could have been interesting if we'd yeah, anyway. So yeah, so this is looking good. For me, it's a buy at current levels, and my stop would be below 15 cents. I'm targeting this book at this resistance at 0.35. That you might see some people book some profits there because it's really strong resistance, but whilst it could fail because it's such a strong level, I would like to play for a breakout. I think if it does break out, it will really surge. So I'd rather sort of see it come back and think, okay, well, it didn't work, rather than watch it surge and think, why aren't I in it? So for me, that's where I want to play the risk. I want to play the risk of a breakout and it extending. So yeah, really interesting one. I do like that. So yeah, thanks for mentioning it.
Perfect.
So we got some pictures to look at, or is that
Well,
something
that
else?
was my Instagram there.
Yeah.
Now, funny
Okay.
enough, I have two Instagrams, right? And so I was doing kind of a business one and then a personal one. And I put on my personal one a quote from Winston Churchill, and then it got flagged by the independent fact checkers that said there is no evidence Winston Churchill ever said this.
What was the quote?
I don't even remember. And so I removed it.
What? Hang on, I know. It was by OMI. It's really cheap.
Yeah, right. So that now whenever somebody goes to add me, so I was in Mexico talking to one of the guys there, and he's like, oh, let me add your Instagram. And he went to add it, and it says, this account has been flagged for repeatedly posting false or misleading information. And I was like, ugh. What I think this is really about is I had it associated with my Facebook account. And about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when governments were deciding, everyone should take a certain injection, I voice my opinion. I didn't think the government should make that decision for people. It's pretty untested. We don't have a lot of history on it, and the people should be able to make that decision for themselves. Well, all my stuff related to that back then on Facebook got flagged as misleading or false information. So I just think they have my account flagged as like I'm a rebel. And so they just took the opportunity to extend that to my Instagram account. So I created another Instagram account that isn't associated with the Facebook account, because they also made it hard for people to like search and find it. You had to like get the name exactly right before bringing it up. And I'm like, bless their hearts over at Meta. Oh, well. So yeah, this is, you'll see that I have two, but the real crypto rain, and there's a link below. But if you want, like, I do post some crypto videos on this. I'm fairly new to Instagram, but I'll be putting some shorts on there. But some of it is just the adventures. Like, what is it that we do crypto for? For me, it was life-changing gains. Well, what do you want those life-changing gains to provide for you? Well, hopefully that's lifestyle.
You definitely don't need wife-changing gains.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what's nice is enough gains will change your wife in a good way, because your wife will like traveling. And so it won't change your wife for a new one. It will change her life. And
I see. Yeah. That's a good
enjoy some things that she didn't get to enjoy.
That's good.
So you can see, like, I've got a video. Her and I enjoy dancing, and that's what this is. Some beautiful views. I mean, just the beach was absolutely gorgeous. And that's me getting a workout in the beach down in Tulum. And we rented a yacht with some friends. And so there's a ton of pictures that I haven't even posted yet. Like, I posted almost nothing. This was beautiful panoramic. This is called the Panoramic, and I think it's run by the Mexican cartel. All their security guards had like these cartel tattoos on it and stuff. It was really interesting. But yeah, that was some of our adventures. Back to SCLP. I was looking at SCLP and just trying to get a feel for it. Love their website here. Fun, and kind of explains a little bit. I'm liking where their market cap is, and I like this chart reversal here. Now, sometimes it comes up and then it kind of breaks lower again, gets cheap again, and then it's off to the races. It's hard to tell, or sometimes there's just this smooth rounding and then it's ready to roll. So either way, the market cap is pretty small. They have 64% of their tokens in circulation already. I like this one. So this would be one that I would do further research by going to Twitter. I'd be checking them out. They have 42,000 followers. I'd want to see AMAs with the founders, because that really tells me a lot about who are the people behind it. As an investor, that's one of the most important things I can find to do research. But I like where the chart's at. I'm liking where their market cap's at. So, I'm rating this one a buy.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, because obviously I'm just superficially looking at the chart. It would absolutely not hurt, even for somebody who just looks at charts, to have a look around at all the things that you flagged there, just to see if you also like what you're seeing, to support the trade. Now, sometimes it might not support the trade, and the market might still go up from a technical point of view. Yeah, that would mean that you'd be just a bit more cautious about letting your profits run, tightening stops, reducing risk, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's it's a good point that you make about looking at the kind of very easy things to check out, just to see what their Twitter's like, what their website's like, and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Let's take a look at COPI. Quick note on cornucopias. They will be joining me Friday for an AMA. I love having a YouTube channel, because one of the most important things for doing research on projects, in my opinion, is interviews with the founders to get a feel for them and their leadership skills, what their vision for the future is, where things are at, reading their body language. And so don't miss the interview with them on Friday. It's been a while since I interviewed them. Be good to get an update on where things are at in their game development. I do think cornucopias could be one of the first metaverses that really takes off, because it's a game, but it has a metaverse within the game, which I think is possibly where metaverses at first do well, is a game that has a big enough, massive multiplayer online role-playing game arena that, like, it really is our first big metaverse that gets traction.
Yeah, this is one that I know we've talked about before, and it must possibly has got more history than we've seen here. But these breakouts, this breakout, and the smoothness of it, and the power that it's gone through these resistance points, and the fact that it's gone through the high of the chart as well, and the way it did it, just consolidated and then boom, straight through it again, is all bullish stuff. These are all bullish signals. Now, yes, it's come back, as we can see, come back to this breakout point, which is fairly usual. Markets tend to do that. They break big levels and then come back and retest them, shake out, the short-term players who are buying it up there, and then go up again. It's the nature of the market that most often it does what it can to kind of frustrate you, really. And but overall, this is looking bullish. I mean, I can't remember what we were saying about it last time, but I would be surprised if I wasn't at least looking for a breakout of 4.5 cents, nearly 5 cents, as a key signal, and it's kind of done that. So I would say it's still bullish. It's still in the buy category.
Yeah, it did a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, is what it's looking like to me. And I like that as a buy area. Now, overall, the market cap's at 60 million. It's not as nice and juicy as it was way back here, but we can't rewind time and buy back at these prices. So it's about 7x from the bottom, which is still not bad. If it does become one of the bigger video games or blockchain games that's played and metaverses that's played, this market cap can go into the tens of billions. So there's still plenty of room to run. I like this one a lot, which is why I invited the founders to come back on and talk. Do I love that it's not as cheap as it was? No, I would love for it to get cheap again, back to like 3 cents. But I don't know that it will. This looks like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back consolidation that might be ready to run some more. So I would rate it a buy. It's not it is actually still a super juicy buy if it really goes crazy and hits like a $10 billion market cap. I mean, that's almost 200x from here. Is it as juicy as it was? No. And, those opportunities may not come back. All right. So great suggestions. I know we have some more comments. If you haven't been able to tell, I am massively sick. I apparently brought something home with me. I loaded up on some Motrin, some Tylenol, some cough suppressant so that I could do the show with Paul. And I asked Paul to do most of the talking today because, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit here.
You might have noticed that a little bit at the top of the
Yeah.
show. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get to one last thought, since it's not a token to look at. It's this one by Chris. Any thoughts on SEC trying to classify DeFi participants providing liquidity as securities dealers? Yeah, I do think this is the SEC just trying to get forced KYC and as much control as they could. They've, in my opinion, been going way beyond the scope of what they're allowed to do, because it's just a power and control grab. Why? I can only speculate as to why. I can't say I know as to why. I just have guesses as to why. But thankfully, the court system has been holding them in check. And sometimes government agencies do this. I mean, the IRS really tried to expand its grasp in the 40s, the 30s and 40s, and had to get smacked down by courts a whole bunch. You're seeing this, the SEC has been performing very poorly in court because they don't have the mandate to do the things that they've been doing. And so this is just another attack vector for them. They'll probably lose, but seems like part of their goal is just to, for whatever reason, slow things down as well, even if they do lose. Of course, they don't want to lose, but they're kind of going out on a limb with a lot of their cases. So why? I don't know. Gary Gensler was very pro-crypto, very pro-altcoins prior to getting put in that position. He said while he was teaching blockchain at Harvard that 2/3 of all altcoins probably aren't securities, and maybe 1/3 could be classified as that. Now in the role at the SEC, he wants to deem, if he could, every altcoin a security. So why? That's got to be a political directive from somebody telling him to go that route, because that wasn't his opinion prior to being in that position. Cool. All right.
I would say Manu, the CEO of Definity, I would definitely ask him that question because he'd have a very good answer.
Yeah, he's fantastic on that subject, and hopefully we'll be able to bring him on a couple more weeks again. He is so well versed on what's going on, and he brought to my attention that the current SEC isn't anti-crypto; they're anti-crypto natives. So they don't like the current people in crypto. They want it to be run by their friends at Goldman Sachs and other people that they have long-standing relationships with. So I was like, that is an interesting view. I've never heard somebody describe it as that before, but that fits exactly right.
It really does. It really does. Brilliant. Well, hope you feel better.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you to the audience for joining us. Appreciate you doing a lot of the talking so I could just rest my voice. I'm going to get some extra rest right after this.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the show, and we'll see you next week.
All right. We'll see you, Paul.
Take care. Bye.
Did want to leave you with some thoughts. Like, the crypto market is likely already bottomed, and it hasn't really taken off yet. Just know that good decision made during these slow times, and it can feel slow right now, it will lead to life-changing ones when the market really hits hard, and it will. If you haven't already, take the Zero to Crypto Hero course. The link is in the description below to help align your thinking correctly. These principles, when applied, will save you and make you 100x over the investment in the course. There is a Rainmaker code for half off that you can find in the description there. Thank you, everyone. This wrap is to reinforce the principles that we share, that just fun way to reiterate and help you think about these principles that, when applied correctly, lead to life-changing gains within crypto. Thanks so much.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dumped it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Thinking that best run can soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be cracking. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on